Hey everybody, welcome back. Today I'm going to include you into a Q&A I'm doing for TinkerAtlas. TinkerAtlas is a social platform, a little bit like Facebook for tinkerers. This has been made by a good friend of mine, Thomas. He's also from Norway, if I'm wrong, I'm so sorry. But the goal of today is to do a little Q&A because they are going to make a maker blog out of me. And I thought, why not film it? So if you're interested in TinkerAtlas and you want to see what people are up to, make a profile, it is all free, then there will be a link down below. This is not the paid sponsor spot, this is just me helping out another brother. So I got about 24 questions and I didn't prepare for them because I want to give you my freshest take. If I prepare for it, then it all seems to be a little bit too scripted. So here we go, this is going to be question number 1. How did you first discover 3D printing and what was your aha moment that made you realize this was more than just a hobby? I first discovered the hobby, I guess around 5 years ago. I was quite bored. I saw an ad on Facebook for a printer and I think it was the Artillery X1, the one that I actually got. Now I don't have it anymore. That was an old Batslinger. I saw the pricing around 300 euros. I was bored out of my mind. I had nothing on my mind other than gaming. So I had something like, yeah, let's just try it. I also started my YouTube channel. I had absolutely no clue what I was doing. And yeah, we started out doing some little tinkeries. I was doing some YouTube videos, so I thought, why not make a video about my experience about the printer? Then that snowballed to what we are right now, which is trying to give you the most honest feedback that I can give you about my user experience. The aha moment I got a few months ago after a burnout. I realized that working for a boss is not really my cup of tea. So right now I am working on my own print farm service, consultancy, all of that. Then question number 2, walk us through your current workspace setup. What machines, tools and software form the backbone of your making process? So the current machines I have are mostly provided by companies for review. Now that policy changed, we are going to talk about that. But yeah, my biggest workhorses are still going to be the Rhetoric behind me and the GD+4, although that is going to change. I'm used to softwares like Fusion 360 for the modeling that I do, or if I have to do any design changes on files that I find. And I like to use Orca for all the slicing that we do because Orca is just the best slicer in my opinion. For all the video editing, we are using Premiere Pro. We are using a very legit version. And I also often do some woodworking for that. I have a bunch of DeWalt tools. I have all the same brand because that matches nice with the battery system. That is also something that the tool companies are doing very well, locking you into a brand just because of the batteries. I did a bunch of woodworking. Now it is mostly 3D printing, but I have a whole setup right over there for my woodworking. I also have a CNC now for some smaller tinkeries. But yeah, I think that is going to be it. There are going to be a bunch of changes. A bunch of these printers are going to leave the shop next year. We are going to make a bunch of room for new printers that I'm more excited about, which are going to be the Voron 2.4. Question number 3, what's the project you're most proud of and why does it stand out among everything you've created? Now, I recently posted a video about my Rhetoric, doing some mods for that system. We designed a complete new tool head. Well, complete new, it is what I call stock plus. So we have redesigned a bunch of the tool head to accommodate for the Goliath mod. And yeah, after some very frustrating weeks with a lot of setbacks, that project finally finished. You can see the video right over there. But that is my most proud video I have so far. It did everything from designing to creating, troubleshooting, and then seeing my final work actually being something useful and not a paperweight like most of the time I design. So the Rhetoric Stock Plus toolhead mod that I made, that is something I am very proud of. Describe a spectacular failure or challenge you faced in your making journey and what it taught you. That is going to be the exact same video. We also made a water block. The water block started leaking like crazy. We had a bunch of other problems trying to incorporate a carbon beam that didn't want to fit. My own design that wasn't up to spec. There were some design flaws in it, having to send it back and then being on a time crunch that really put a number on me. What it taught me is to not give up. I have been very close to saying, you know what, I don't care. I'm going to buy a pre-made design from another brother, from another mother. But yeah, I think that sometimes you just need to take a little break, walk away, look at it again after a week, and then you will see that sometimes these solutions are way easier than you had in your mind when you are staring at a project for days on end. 5. What misconception about 3D printing or making do you find yourself constantly correcting when talking to newcomers? What misconceptions about 3D printing? That it is still just making toys. Right now we are so far past making just toys with 3D printing. We have engineering materials that are now finally super affordable to get your hands on. Also the printers that are capable, like the GD Plus 4 is now only 500 and a little bit euros, and you can do everything except for Ultimate Packs, peaks and all of that. But we can now finally make things out of 3D printed material that are no longer toys. So everybody that's new in 3D printing and still think that we are only making fidget spinners. 6. What's your go-to troubleshooting process when a print goes wrong? And what's the most unusual fix you have discovered? The most unusual fix I have discovered is way too much flow. With the again, with the Rhetoric Goliath mod, your first intuition is just do the same thing you were doing with the previous hot end. So the flows were about the same, 0.9495. That are the numbers that most of the printers are happy with. Now with the Goliath, I had to drop all the way down to 0.81, which is extremely low. But yeah, there was just so much flow going on that we had to drop it by that much. So first of all, and I still have to learn it that way, is that you need to do your calibrations top to bottom. You start with the temperatures, then you have your flows. You just go through the charts of Orca to do all your calibrations. That is basically it. If you have printing problems, that is most of the time going to be the problem. Wet filament and not well-tuned profiles. How do you approach the design to print workflow? Do you design everything yourself, remix existing models, or combine approaches? Now, first of all, I think remixing existing files is just another can, another wormhole that I'm not prepared to tackle. You have to do something with the mesh. The mesh is a bunch of triangles. I have no clue how to do something with something like that. If you do a scan, for instance, you get a model and you can hardly do anything with it because of the triangles on that surface. Now, Fusion has something to convert it to a body, but it is still not what you want to see. It is still very rough. But yeah, most of the time I just design everything myself. If I need a reference, I will make a scan. I will use that scan in software to do my measurements or maybe lay it on top of it. But most of the time I am going all the way from scratch to something that is going to be the end result. Kudos for everyone that can do mesh fixes or mesh generation or mesh edits. It's not for me. I like to redesign everything. I find it very cursed to do. I did, however, had one job that just needed a little bit of thickness. So I did install a software, I think it's called Mesh Fixer or ZBrush or anything like that. That basically I could take a brush and if you wipe over it, it would extrude a little bit of a material or thicken the material, and that was all it was needed. And that is as far as I ever went with trying to adapt for a mesh. What material or technique do you think is underrated in the maker community, and how do you use it in your work? That is going to be very easy. ABS. It has been very popular in the beginning of 3D printing, but it started to slip off because of the new materials that we are going to get right now. But I still think ABS is my goat of a filament because, first of all, it sands super easy and it glues super easy. So a lot of my customer projects, Mike, if you're watching, he makes massive 3D printed cases for computers and all of that. I'm his resident 3D printer for his projects, and we need to glue everything. Even the Rhetoric 400mm cubed is not big enough for most of his projects, which means you have to do a multi-part. Multi-part is a very handy way of trying to make a bigger project. Now the downside is if you need to glue it and you really need to have a solid product. PLA, PETG, nylons, TPUs are fairly hard to glue ABS is still the GOAT. You just need a little bit of acetone, then you dilute a little bit of your filament. Most of the time I use a support that you have a bit of a paste, you rub it on, and after an hour it is already sticking to a result that you cannot remove again. I really love ABS. It is underrated in my opinion. It is, however, not the strongest filament anymore, but if you are going to do multi-part prints, you want to have them glued and sanded and looking beautiful to receive some paint or anything like that, ABS is still the GOAT. 9. How was being part of the maker community shape your approach to creating and sharing your work? In the beginning, everybody feels the same. They do something, you design something, and you feel like, yeah, there is some money in that. Well, I can tell you right now, brother, most of the time, it's not worth it. So I started approaching the open source team. So that means that most of my work, or basically everything that I do, is readily available on the internet. You can just download it. The rhetoric mods that I did are also open source. You can grab them from the internet and you can just design your parts from a supplier and do all the work yourself. Right next to me I have the Mega Smoother. I know it has been quiet for a long time about the Mega Smoother, but that project is also going to be open sourced. So in the beginning I wanted to make money out of it by designing my stuff and trying to sell parts or designs. Yeah, that didn't work out. So everything is now most of the time open source. So that changed my mind. I also started talking to people that do a lot of the work I do. So making designs, putting them up as open source or just free to download so people can use them. I really like it. I really started to dig in that open source community. And right now I am very happy to be part of that open source community because it is super important. We could see the last year how important open source really has been with the companies trying to pull a fast one on you. I can tell you right now, open source can never pull a fast one on you. So that also means that if I create or design something, I need to remember that maybe people next to me, or my neighbor, or you in America, or whatever you are watching from, might want to print that. So if I do a print that is a little bit janky, I might do a little bit more work to make it less janky, so if you print it, it is actually successful. 10. What advice would you give to someone who's interested in making but feels overwhelmed by the technical learning curve? I started out in my couch with a laptop on my lap and watching some YouTube videos. I would like to call it Larson, who was making tutorials about Fusion 360. I grabbed some beers, I took my laptop, I installed some software like Fusion 360, and I just did what the man was doing on the TV. So I was basically following a tutorial. Right now, there are actual video workshops that are way more interesting, way more elaborate, and way more friendly for the newcomers. So if you are interested in trying to design anything in CAD, I really would recommend you to follow a tutorial on how to do the basics. Grab your laptop or your computer and just follow the man on the screen. And after a while, you start to design a few things. You make some circles, squares, brackets. After the brackets, you are starting to do get know of the features that are in there that you never used. You click them, you try them, then you see, nice, that works. And every design from then that you do after that is going to be better than the first one. It is just like going to the gym. In the beginning, you will suck, but the more you do it, the better you are getting at it. So I would say start small. Start maybe with some files that are created by designers like me or makers out of the community, and then just try to follow some tutorials. Make some small stuff, some meaningless stuff that you might need at home, and then you will see that will start to snowball. And before you know, you are starting to create stuff that you think, wow, if I look at myself back 5 years ago, yeah, this is something I would never be able to design back then. 11. Where do you see personal fabrication and 3D printing heading in the next 5 years? And how are you preparing for those changes? Personal fabrication in the next 5 years. I think it's going to be even more important than it is right now. For instance, right here where I live in Belgium, we are still at the tippy top, the beginning of 3D printing. People are still looking at 3D printing like it is a toy. That is starting to change with all the massively cheap printers on the market, Bamboos, Crealities, the cheese. Printers are dirt cheap these days, and we can now see finally some adoption in the schools, so for the kids and all of that, but also for the people at home, we can finally see some adoption. So I think that creating stuff for yourself is going to be increasingly important. And why is that? Because, for instance, you buy something and after 1 or 2 years, you will not be able to buy spare parts for it if you have spare parts to begin with. We are living in a culture these days that consumerism is taking over control. Right to repair is starting to diminish. It is really disappearing, honestly. In some countries like America, right to repair is even forbidden by law with jail time and all of that. It is absolutely crazy. So I think it is going to be super important to sharpen your skill, design more for yourself, because your government or the companies that you buy from are definitely not going to do it. So having that skill to be able to repair your own products is going to be a very, very useful feature in the future, especially if you're going to do that for your potential job in the future. I also think that it's going to be really important that you are sufficient in trying to fix your own junk. So yeah, I think it's going to be something like that. I think it's going to be increasingly important to be able to design or fix your own stuff, because right now we are really living in a throwaway culture. Number 12, what's currently on your workbench or in your print queue that has you excited? Now currently, right over there is going to be the FlashForge 85X. I just finished that video that we did mod on to have full fluid access, so we clipperized the printer. And next up is going to be a very interesting video, in my opinion, which is going to be graphite beds. I have 6 of those graphite beds laying around because right there, the printer up top, the Soval SV08, is going to get some spicy mods. We're going to replace the bed because the bed of a Soval SV08 is awful. It is all shaped like a taco. It is horrible to do a first layer on. And yeah, I think graphite beds give you that almost close to 0Z offset kind of deal, even heating. But yeah, I don't know. We still have to do the testing, so that is something I am looking forward to. And in the print queue in the future, we are also going to set a printer on fire. I'm going to leave it at that. Outside of making, what influences or inspires your creative process? In my opinion, it is watching other people do something. The whole reason why I'm here doing the things that I do is by watching somebody called Adam Savage. Adam Savage from Mythbusters. This is probably not going to be a very original story. A lot of people are probably going to say the same. I grew up with a program called Mythbusters. I followed Adam Savage with Tested on YouTube, especially when we were in the full COVID era. Tested, Adam Savage was doing a lot of videos, a lot of one-day builds that really inspired me, and even till today. Although I think that he started to move away from the one-day builds and he is doing other stuff that I'm not so interested in anymore. Just seeing people create something. For instance, we have a Discord, Team 7. We have a few very talented people in there. For instance, FX Woody. If you're watching, hi dude. He is now building his Moron 4. I love that name. And he is basically redesigning a GD Plus 4 from ground up with ball screws, a completely redesigned bed, a completely redesigned tool head. And that stuff really inspires me. Just seeing other people do something that I would never thought of. And most of the time, and that is something that really is, for me, very important, it doesn't always have to make sense. It just has to be something that interests you. So I have done a bunch of projects that don't make sense to begin with. It will not make sense for you. It will not make sense for anyone to download and make them themselves, like that cooling pad laptop thingy. But it is all about the process of just figuring out things, trying things out, starting some designs, learning. That is basically it. Just seeing people do something stupid, but you get something from it for your next project. I think that is what inspires me to do better than I'm doing right now. If you could only keep 3 tools, machines in your workshop, what would they be and why? 3D printer, no-brainer. Now the other 2 are going to be a little bit harder, because most of the time if I do something, I just pull out all the drawers and I have to use everything at my disposal. Especially woodworking, you really need all the tools in the world. But if I have to pick some, it's going to be a drill, a 3D printer and a soldering iron. Now it's time for a lightning round, quick answers. 1. Favorite filament brand and why in 10 words or less? ABS High Speed from Eson. Prints like a hooligan, it doesn't warp, sticks very well to the bed, and it earns me money. Most underrated tool under 50 bucks every maker should own. So I'm actually going to show you 2 tools. Deburring tool, you really need it if you are into 3D printing, and then I have this chisel, and it is to remove junk from the build plate. Super handy, super easy, jab it, and you don't destroy your flex plate. I found the plastic ones to do a horrible job at that. STL model website you visit most frequently. Printables, nice layout, they have a reward program, and it is not in your face. Also not run by a company that is absolute dog shit. Dream tool or machine you'd buy with unlimited budget. Vision Miner IDEX 22V4, I think that machine is called. My most played podcast / YouTube channel while working in the shop. I have a few, and they are all not 3D print related. Moore's Law is Dead about computers, and the Hardware Unboxed podcast. First thing you ever 3D printed versus the most recent print. Now, my first print was going to be a fix for the printer that I was printing on, because back in the day you need to mod your printer before it started failing at you. It was a whole thing 5 years back. Printers were junk, so that was my first print. Those were mods. And my last print, I threw them away. Little rubber duckies printed on the 85X for testing the Z-mod. Slicer of choice and one setting everyone should tweak. Slicer of choice, no-brainer, Orca. Slicer setting that everyone should tweak. Filament, infill. Biggest maker sin you're guilty of. For instance, messy workspace, never finishing projects, hoarding filaments. Well, a messy workshop is definitely one of them. I try to clean up often, but it seems like every time you clean up the day after that, your whole shop explodes. But my biggest sins are going to be keeping onto filament I never use. For instance, I have a whole rack full with PLA. I don't use PLA. One maker / creator everyone should be following right now. That is going to be very easy. Taylor from YGK 3D. Your maker superpower in 3 words. It's not going to be in 3 words, but fuck around to find out. Yeah, I think I own that one. Alright, that was the questionnaire from TinkerAtlas. I hope you enjoyed my answers. Make sure to follow me on TinkerAtlas, because right now I'm also on there. By the way, I'm also a sponsor of TinkerAtlas, or it's not really a sponsor, a contributor. I think I'm right now in the gold tier, something like that. So yeah, I'm supporting TinkerAtlas. I really like the work that he is doing. So if you are interested in that project, make sure to give it a visit and tell me what you think about it. And like always, a big shout out to the members of the channel. It's thanks to them that I don't have to be that worried about what is coming in every month. If you're not subscribed to the channel, then please make sure that you do. It is free. Give me a big thumbs up. That is also very free. And otherwise, I see you in the next one.